Hello everyone, I am Tessellating Hexagons, and in the year 2011, during the grand final of Eurovision, Georgia was represented by a band called Eldrine and a song called One More Day, and the UK commentator Mr. Graham Norton said during the recap, and I quote, "Oh god, it's Georgia!" And on that note, oh god, it's Georgia! So, I bring this anecdote up because I fully suspect that he ain't seen nothing yet and this song will get a very similar reaction from him, but I am getting ahead of myself. Georgia announced fairly early in the Eurovision season that we can expect to see on stage for them Messrs. Damocles Stavriadis, Igor von Liechtenstein, Bavons Gevorkian, and Iago Waitman. Together, they are Circus Mircus. With their powers combined, they become an entire circus. And their song is called Lock Me In. That's kind of the reaction I think they're going for, so yeah. We heard early in the season that Georgia was planning something a little bit cray-cray, and they waited until fairly late in the season to actually go cray-cray, and now here I am reviewing it even later still. The song is fully in English, music and lyrics by the band themselves, as they self-identify throughout the song. Circus Mircus! Pudding and Pircus kissed the boys and made them cry. I don't know where I'm going with this. So how about I go to the town of Shutupsville and get on with the review. Right, I had high hopes for this song, really. I mean, Georgia already has a history of being a tad bit experimental, a bit off-piste and unusual, and Circus Mircus really looks like another notch in that particular belt. I enjoyed 3 Minutes to Earth back in 2014, for example, and Midnight Gold in 2016 went down an absolute treat. In hindsight, though, the fact that nobody's really been talking about this song since its release should have clued me into something here. Thing is, and I'll reiterate this again later, I don't hate this song. It's just not to my personal taste. Thing is, it doesn't really seem to be to too many other people's tastes either, which begs the question, who is this meant to be for, or is it just self-indulgence for its own sake? I like the creative freedom that it represents, but, well, I don't see myself coming back to this song once I'm done with it, I'll put it that way. So, well, one thing we can say for certain is that this song is utter madness, and for some people, that's a huge turn-on. There is something to be said for rebelling against established conventions, and if the end product isn't palatable according to standards we're familiar with, some people might find that that begs the question of whether it's actually the standards we're familiar with that are at fault there, rather than the thing that's challenging them. If you're prepared to think, it can make you think, basically. And if you're not, well, the song still delivers some funky, fresh, grown-up beats that you can get your groove onto. Am I crazy? I'm fairly sure this song is funky. Whatever the meaning's meant to be, it's clear that the Circus Mircus chaps are having immense fun with it. And that sense of fun, especially delivered in this sort of way, can be spectacularly infectious if you're prepared to let it in, or lock it in, if you will. The song has vibes to share, that much is undoubtedly clear. Bearing in mind the group's history, having met in a circus in the first place, and bearing in mind the artwork associated with the song and the music video, which, by the way, they held off on releasing it because they thought it would be insensitive to release a happy fun time video while there's a certain crisis going on that YouTube doesn't want me to talk about happening on the other side of Europe, but anyway, they had the sensibility in mind to withhold the video for a little while out of mindfulness, and I respect the ever-loving goodness out of that, and good on you guys, but anyway, I think we could expect some profoundly striking visuals to accompany this song on stage in Turin. You might even go so far as to feel that the song isn't a complete experience without its visual elements. And if that is the case, then I, for one, look forward to seeing what they have in mind for this. And finally, yeah, there is no way that this song won't stand out on the night. The sound and style is so different from the norm, or at least what we're used to, that just by virtue of disrupting that norm, it'll stick out in the audience's memory. If they do bring the kind of staging I'm anticipating, then that'll take them even further in that regard too. After all, the only thing worse than being bad at Eurovision is being forgotten, and there is no risk of them being forgotten. That much is for absolutely sure. So, well, one thing we can say for certain is that this song is utter madness, and for some people, that's a huge turn-off. Because of how lol random the song is, it can come across as different for the sake of different. And there is something mildly irritating about something that disrupts standards and expectations only to do nothing with it. Like, okay, you've acted outside of the norm to get our attention, and now you have our attention. Do you have something to say, or did you just want us to look over there? Really, that feeds into my next point as well. The lyrics are kind of just noise. There isn't a single shred of actual meaning to be had anywhere in the song. It's mostly just throwing around strings of syllables that feel good to say, or so it seems, and then also a bunch of iterating on the verb lock, ultimately culminating in "lock me sideways," which is the only one of the variants that literally does not mean anything. You could lock someone up, you could lock something down, you could lock someone in or out, but locking sideways, not a thing. I confess, the fact that they revel in hitting upon a meaningless sentence and celebrating it kind of annoys me, to be honest. But I know that that is just because of my academic background. Yeah, my mother has a degree in English, so kind of we can get a little bit fussy in this household. I fully admit it's kind of a me problem. But still, how can you lock sideways? Still, that doesn't really do anything to help the song's general existence as an incoherent mishmash of disjointed ideas. Really, it doesn't feel right to refer to this as a song, but I don't mean that in an insulting way. It's just, there are so many different mismatching parts that are all kind of not smushed together. They do fit together, but they're still mismatching. Calling it a song doesn't feel like the right word. It's more like a musical mood board. So, as I said, I don't mean to be insulting. And that lack of cohesion, in any case, can definitely come off as repulsive to some listeners, especially if they do present it with the wacky circus aesthetic, because then that'd make the whole thing land like a massive joke. Like they're saying, haha, we just stole 3 minutes of your life, isn't it funny that you can never get those 3 minutes back? I really don't think that's their intention. It's just, if you're not feeling charitable, that is a way it can come across, and if that is your point of view, it's kind of a valid way of looking at it, but disagreeing with that is also valid. Opinion have is good time. And speaking of the good time that is opinion have, how would I express mine in the form of n, where n is an integer between 0 and 10? I'll preface this by saying this isn't a commentary on the song's objective qualities, but my personal opinion score here kinda tops out at a disappointing 2 out of 10. I don't hate this song, far from it. It's just so not the sort of thing that I enjoy listening to. The structure is all over the place, the body of it is chaotic and frenetic, and the words are utterly meaningless. How do you lock something sideways? What doesn't help is their circus experience informs the look of the video to the point that it's much easier than it otherwise would be to interpret it as, we're just doing this for a laugh because we don't think it's worth taking it seriously. Again, I don't think it's their intention, that's just how it can seem. I'll put it this way. Eurovision is the Olympics of music, that's just a fact. And Circus Mircus are kind of Georgia's answer to Eddie the Eagle. Look it up, kids. But my opinion score here isn't from a moral, oh no, they're kicking my hobby while it's down, I have to punish them with a bad number. That's not what I'm thinking. I give it a 2 because it's just the music itself doesn't click with me, and the refrain, if it can be called that, is in a key that just really rubs me the wrong way for reasons that I can't explain. This is purely an opinion, it's not meant to be a punishment. So let's look at how I would think as a juror, lyrics-wise. 0 out of 2, there's no meaning, there's no narrative through line, there is not really anything of note, really. It's a cloud, a nebulous void of ideas. That's not to say that it's bad, per se, it just doesn't rank on the scale that I've been judging all of this year's songs by. So it's not a commentary on the song, you know, it's not bad, it just doesn't rate on my scale. Musically, 1 out of 2. Similarly, there's certainly something here, but again, it's a deliberately disjointed storm of chaos. I don't doubt that there is legitimate artistry behind it, it's just a bit messy. And there are some chords in there that I personally find annoying, but that's just me, so that doesn't factor into it. So the music is good, but it's crazy, so like, again, I'm judging it based on the same factors that I judge other songs by this year. Delivery, though, definitely 2 out of 2. Cannot fault that. This is the area where Circus Mircus absolutely shines as a group. Is it meaningless? Yes. Is it utter chaos? Yes. But do they own every second of it and embrace the mania of it? Absolutely. And conviction is king in this sort of situation. Staging potential also, I will say 2 out of 2, in the same way. Judging by the music video and their backgrounds as artists from the world of circus, I expect the live presentation of the song to be, for better or for worse, a spectacle. I think this will translate fantastically onto the Eurovision stage. At the very least, as performances go. Appeal-wise, I'm gonna say 0, and I'm gonna need to explain myself. Don't misunderstand. I'm not saying that the song doesn't have appeal. It's just the audience who appreciates this sort of song is extremely limited, while the most common reactions are likely to vary wildly between outright dislike, up through total apathy, topping out at a mild, and its lack of marketability really hinders it going any further than that, I'm afraid. Overall, that's an underwhelming 5 out of 10 from Juratess. I honestly expected more, for a combined total of 7 altogether. Really though, that's just the end product of a perfect storm of it not being my personal cup of tea, and it being so nonconformist that it sort of doesn't really hit half of my checklist for technical points. It's not a bad song, it just exists on a different plane of reality. So, is Georgia moving in the right direction? I really don't know. I'll give them the yellow arrow for the time being because, well, it's kind of a double-edged sword. On one hand, in going back to a fully internal selection, Georgia is able to send something as off-the-wall bonkers as this, and not for the first time, and that kind of freedom of expression, and the fact that they would dare to send something like this, is refreshing, as well as, you know, it's daring, it's bold, it's something that some countries would not have the nerve to do, so it's nice that, you know, we do get something different. The other side of that coin, though, is in choosing an act like this, they are blurring the lines between creative freedom and ultra-postmodernist anarchy. If it's impossible to tell whether your work is art, satire, or absolute randomness, it may as well just be the latter. And sending the latter to Eurovision sends some rather troubling messages about how you perceive the contest, whether that's your intention or not. So I respect the theory behind the selection, but the practice of it leaves me a little bit cold. But will they make up for it in the form of results? My instinct as a seasoned critic is to say I see this going nowhere fast, but let's not be too hasty. Georgia is up in the first half of the second semi-final, so they have Azerbaijan on hand on the off chance that being a fellow Caucasus country is enough to make this seem a bit more appealing. Maybe it's a cultural divide, I don't know. On top of that, the UK votes in that semi-final as well, and the average British fan who knows nothing about Europe or Eurovision tends to love this sort of thing because they unironically think that literally every Eurovision song ever is some variation on this. And to be fair, I think the juries would be completely objectively wrong to leave this in the dust. It does deserve some recognition. Nevertheless, at my kindest, I'd say it's too challenging for most viewers, and at my least kind, I'd say it's utter stupidity masquerading as high art for the sake of a defense. Either way, this is a sample platter of ideas, and I suspect its zaniness will make it appeal to some people, but largely won't stand it in good stead when the voting happens. Even if the staging is reminiscent of Midnight Gold in 2016, which was a surprise qualifier at the time, by the way, I still see this going the way that Henri Jokadze did in 2012 instead. But I am completely open to being proven wrong. If anything, I would like to see it. I want to see something that challenges my deductions from this song. On that note, I'll throw it over to you, lovely people. Listen for yourself. Links in the iCard, the description, the iCard, the description. Click around, you'll find the song, and if you want to share what you think, then feel free to do so. I support any open, honest, healthy, non-toxic discussions. In the meantime, Circus Mircus, it kind of goes right over my head, but I appreciate the artistry behind it. I'm not crazy about it, but I do still wish you the very best of luck. Maybe you'll change my mind when I see you in May.